decade 15 through 23. The SEC will remain at 8 games, and I think that's pretty much what was expected. 9 in 2026. John Talty covers Alabama. They announced their 8 conference games for each team in 2025. Start times, which is interesting. Start times changing. Fans might appreciate what they do there.
Am I crazy at this rate? Like in about 2 months, we're going to get the 2029 schedule for the SEC.
It seems like it.
Yeah, you'll get the Big 12 schedule like next March or something like that.
Yeah, it's just I feel like we're just getting so far ahead. But here's what to know about the SEC schedule for 2025. Right, it's the 2024 schedule flipped.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Yeah, it's whatever was home is away.
As far as the matchups go in conference, right. That's all it is just take the 2024 schedule, flip home and away conference opponents, and that's your schedule. The dates will be different, but beyond that, if you were playing Georgia in Athens this year, you're getting Georgia at home next year. If you were playing Ole Miss on the road, you're hosting Ole Miss next year. So that's the simplest way to break it down, and because of that, I looked at a lot of, mostly because of just history. I have more Big 12 or I guess Texas or Oklahoma folks on my timeline than I do most of the others, and a sprinkling of Texas A&M as well. And I know the initial thoughts on the schedule was that Oklahoma got one of the tougher draws and that Texas got a pretty nice draw for year number 1. And
yeah, it could have been more difficult.
Definitely could have been more difficult. And so I think you look at that now, another year later, and just flipping the schedule, and I think, man, what a great opportunity for Texas right out of the gates, where I do think they got about as good of a draw in terms of hardcore opponents stacked up as you could possibly get. And, they're going to be loving life with this schedule for the next 2 years, even though there's some challenges. But it's not this – like, it's made to sound like every week you're playing some juggernaut, and that's not at all what it's really like. You're, in the end, playing – probably a certified really good 3 to 4 teams, and then it all depends on who's good that year. Like, is this the year where Ole Miss is really good, or Arkansas just has a team that's better than expected?
Or Missouri jumps up, Florida going to remain neutral?
That's kind of what it depends on, because if you got Alabama, they're going to be good. How great they are, we'll see. But Georgia, they're going to be great. Texas, they're going to be really good, so on and so forth. But then you get South Carolina,
Mississippi State.
Those are sprinkled in, so it's not as daunting as you really think in your head. When sometimes I feel like it comes across as though you're playing at Bama, and then you're hosting Georgia, and then you're going to LSU, and then you're turning around and playing Texas. It's not quite that, but it is tough, and it's fun to see these new layouts.
Same teams Oklahoma's going to play this fall, but you still look at them. Auburn with Hugh Freeze year 2 this year. And then 3 next year. They have LSU. Well, they won't be down long. And I say down for them.
They'll be back.
Still really good. And then you have Ole Miss, who's red hot. Missouri, who right now is red hot.
Yep.
And then, of course, the games with Alabama. Tennessee. This thing called Texas, this rival. So, and then the one game you look at, you're like, South Carolina. And yet Beamer, you don't know how much he's going to go up and down with what they do with the Gamecocks.
Well, I think the thing I look at here is home versus road, in 2025 and how that flips. Look, Texas, their schedule on the road this year is, at Michigan and at I guess Georgia would be
that's
home.
a non-conference game.
Yeah, but like as far as road, like that's their toughest spots is at Michigan and probably at A&M.
Their road games this year are Arkansas, A&M, Vanderbilt, as far as conference games, in the neutral game in Dallas with Oklahoma.
Yeah, so
is that really that crazy?
Yeah, no,
that's not at all.
A&M's of those 4, Oklahoma, that's something they do every year, so that's not going to change. They know how that is. A&M will be probably is new for all these guys because that's been gone for over a decade and is coming back, and the emotions around that game will be very huge from the fan base. I don't know how much that will catch with the actual players on the team because they didn't grow up with the rivalry like our generation did, but I think there'll be a weird one. But when you look at Texas in 2025, at Florida, with probably a new coach if they don't get right, and which is probably
and
not
if
fair
it's
to
not a
Billy.
new coach, maybe they're showing signs of
must
coming
be,
out of hibernation.
But especially given Florida's schedule that they've got the next 2 years. Arkansas with probably a new coach at home, and Kentucky, Mississippi State. Like Mississippi State's going to be a second year of Lebby. So
look,
not that. Yeah. It's kind of like the way the SEC markets themselves to me is kind of like In-N-Out Burger, where like everything is so great, but the fries are garbage. So like, yeah, the burgers are really good, but like, yeah, it's not all perfect.
Yeah, I'm not saying it to knock the schedules either. It's just that I just think it's a situation where because they're just simply flipping, that Texas has a dream draw as far as your first couple of years, as far as it being digestible. I think Oklahoma's got a couple years to begin with that are going to be really tough.
And at some point, Texas will have what they have. Exactly.
But all we know is the next couple of years, and just pointing out that it's not the necessarily the murderer's row week in and week out that it kind of is portrayed, and that's going to be the case. The bigger these conferences get, the less you're going to have that potential murderer's row. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see these matchups.
So UT at home in 25 will be Arkansas, A&M, Vanderbilt, and the neutral game with Oklahoma. Now let's